Okay, but how do you change out these images? I'm going to show you how to swap out images. It's very, very easy. So let's say we want to go up here. Let's say we want to go up here to our site photos, and I'm just going to find a random image to drop in here. I just need to highlight or click on this placeholder box and make sure that I can see kind of all of these edges highlighted with these little handles. Then I'm going to open up my files, and I'm just going to find a random image. So I'm going to go into my materials palette here, and maybe I will drop in this picture. So you can see that if you're working from a placeholder, InDesign will do its best to size that image most appropriately with the placeholder box that is already there. But if you click once on an image in InDesign, it just selects the image, so you're moving the image around. I'm just going to undo that by pressing Ctrl Z. But if you want to change the image inside this blue box, you can double click, and that will highlight this orange rectangle, which is basically the image itself. So we can see that this image actually has an aspect ratio that extends down. So if I want to center it, I can do that. You see that I get this little green centering line. So once you have double clicked inside, you can move an image around so that it fits the box. So let's add a few more images. I'm just going to dump them in like that. So if I double click on this, I see that InDesign has sized this texture to be match the maximum height or width, depending on which type of file we're working with. And these placeholders are created by using this little tool. It's called a frame tool. So right now I have it on ellipses, but you could do rectangle frames and you could do other shapes of frames as well. So all of the frames I've created, I used with the rectangle frame tool, and that's easy. You can just draw it on the page like that and then use it to fill in. You can also just replace images the same way. So if I click on this image and I navigate to another file that I want to replace it with, maybe this one, and I drop it in, it will get dropped in. Now I double clicked on this to get that total image size, and now I want to make sure that the edges on this side are matching the edges of the blue. So I'm just going to use Shift to constrain the proportions and size it down so that it's fitting better within the frame. And I can just use my pan tool while I'm in this orange frame to move it around. I'll click outside just to escape that. So it's important to keep in mind the difference between one click and two clicks on these frames. So one click gives you access to the frame itself, and you can move that around. Double clicking gives you access to the image within the frame. So you can move and shift and change that around. All right, when you're using images and you want to resize them, it depends on what you want to do with it. So say, for example, on this one, on this image, I want to reduce this frame. I want to cut off a part of the text. So maybe, let's see, I have an example down here. So if I zoom in here, you see this one has a little title down here, but I don't want to see the title because I wrote a new title down here that's in bigger text. So this is a lot more legible than this one. So if I have this image selected and I look up here where it says autofit, I can see that autofit is unchecked. That means that I can resize this box and it won't change the proportions of the image inside. So I can drag that little handle up to hide that text, but it doesn't move my image or resize it. But let's say I do want to resize an image. Then I could select one of these images and I could make sure autofit is checked off. And then I can change this handle. If I change this like this, it's going to change the actual image size that's within. So the image is changing with the resizing as I move the handles around. Whereas if I uncheck it and I move those handles, it's just ending up cutting it off. So that's a good thing to be aware of. Right now I have this entire document set to show what all the frames and borders and outlines of the text are so that you can see where things are taking up space. If you want to get a basic preview of what this poster is going to look like without those frames, you can just press W. W will just give you a quick preview of all of this stuff without all of those handy frames that we use to lay things out. So as I do that, I notice that this edge needs to be changed a little bit. So making sure that my autofit is not selected, I could just drag that in a little bit so that I don't see that cutoff point there. And I'll just press W again to get back to my frame preview. Okay, so some of you might want to use a custom font, so I'm just going to show you how you can load one of those up. I have this font on my desktop, and I'm going to take just both of these fonts and highlight them and right-click and go install. It's already installed on my computer, but I'm just going to replace it just to show you. So it will install the fonts. And after they've been installed, you may have to close down InDesign and reopen it, but those fonts should show up in your character palette over here where you have all the access to your fonts. So if I look for my font now, I can see that it's there, and I can go ahead and replace all of my text with the Stockholm font if I want to. So I would recommend you guys, when you're working with text, that you make sure it is not hyphenated. So whenever you have text, you can just go to this paragraphs flyout and uncheck hyphenate. So if you want to select all the text, you can of course go into your layers and just select everything at once by clicking on this little sidebar here, and then go to hyphenate until it's off, and that will ensure that your text is not hyphenated in the middle of a sentence. I think that's important because the last thing you want is for text to be cut off in your layouts. I also wanted to show you a quick way to underline text. Some of you, I think, were looking for a way to do this in your planting palettes. So with a text selected, if you go to character and then you go into this little hamburger menu, you can go to underline, and that's going to automatically underline the text there. So it's a little bit of a different way of thinking about it, but this actually gives you a lot more control over this. So if you go down to this box again and then go to underline options, I'm going to check off preview here, and this is going to allow you to independently increase the weight of that underline. So if you wanted a really thick underline, you could turn the weight of the underline up here. If you wanted to change it to another type of line, you could do that here. I don't know why you would want to do that, but you can. And then a nice thing is they have an offset. So if you want to offset this from your text like that, you can see how it pulls the underline down from the text. You can even change the color of the underline like that. I'm just going to turn it back to the text color and turn it down to 1. And reduce my offset, maybe 2. Okay, so now you have a text underline like that, and I'll just press W so you can see what it looks like.